Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to a first Descendant video. And yes, this is the base version of Hailey and still taking down Colossi within those 10 to 15 seconds. Yes, it's not only hard pyro as you saw, we can one phase a lot of hard Colossi and with a base Hailey. There is no energy activator, there are no catalysts in there, and not even on my gun as well. If you find the gun, if you collect Hailey, you can already start doing this, and I have a perfect base build for you. Let's dive into the skills and look at that a little bit closer so I can explain why we are doing what we're doing. So if we hover over the skills of Hailey, you can see her 1 is cryo rounds, her 2 is a storm snare, her 3 is the cold fury, and her 4 is zenith. What we are going to utilize mostly is R2, R3, and R4. R3 doesn't really do that much damage for you. As you see, this will boost up your damage, your critical hit rate, your firearm penetration, and it is a bunch of extra damage output. So this is of course chill dimensional, but we're not building into dimensional. We are building into singular. And why singular? Because R2 and R4 are both singular, and those are the skills that we will do some damage with, and we will take out the Colossi. So let's go over the 2 real quick. This is Storm Snare, unleashes a chill vortex around her, knocking back hits targets and firing a massive freezing beam in the direction of the crosshair, and inflicts cryo on the target, hit base on an enemy AoE. The cryo has a duration of 12 seconds, and we get an additional damage of 50% up to a max stacks of 9. And why is this so good? And the storm snare is the strongest skill you have on Hailey, and that's why you kind of want to use it as the second skill, as you saw in the videos before. We're taking out our 4 first to get him to his knees, get maybe a little extra shot off, then we're switching over to R2 to do the last damages. And sometimes, depending on the boss, we also use R1 to make sure that we build up those cryo rounds, so R2 will still hit for that extra additional damage. And that's why we can one phase a bunch of the hard Colossi, just getting R2 out when they are on their knees. So again, we walk up to the battlefield, we will hit our cold fury to get our stacks for the extra damage in. Then we're switching over to R4, making sure that we're hitting our 4 shot or maybe 3 shots depending on the Colossi. When he's on his knees, we're switching over to R2 to do the last bit of damage and take him out. And then of course we want to focus on singular, because that's where most of our damage coming from the storm snare, singular, and from our 4th, the zenith, also singular. Now that we talked about the skills, let's talk about our reactor. What you want to find is a piercing light reactor, and then with chill skill power and singular skill power boost ratio on there, and preferably you want to find it with skill critical hit damage and then damage to Colossi. I found it with skill critical hit rate, what is also a very nice addition. And then we have the singular skill power boost ratio, what will help us out as well. But preferably, I would love to find critical hit damage and damage to Colossi, so we can do even more damage on those Void Interceptor battles, and then we can even take the hard Colossi down faster. So this is what I went for. Again, piercing light mounting with chill skill boost ratio, singular skill boost ratio, and then go for critical hit damage, damage to Colossi. I have it on skill critical hit rate and singular power boost ratio, what also helps you out a ton. But the critical hit damage and damage to Colossi will do more for you. Hailey is just straight up a bosser. The open world build for her is not really great. You are very slow when you pop that 3 above you. What will give you the damage? She is a straight up murder machine, but in the open world she needs a bit more love. So when the mid-season update, the 1.5 update comes out for this season, when we will get Ultimate Freyna, we will also get Hailey's red modules. So I really hope that we will have a red module that will support an open world build for her, because I really enjoy playing with Hailey and maybe even looking at her, but let's keep that in the middle. Let's jump over to my external components. My external components are all Slayer set. And why the Slayer set? Because this will give us an additional 26.1% skill power, and this will boost your damage quite a lot. Everything is Slayer set. You can find that while defeating Hard Pyro. Hard Pyro is one of the easiest bosses to take out with Hailey, so you can just farm him with her. The normal gear sets will still do the job. It's gonna be a little bit more tricky, but it will still do the job. But preferably you wanna go for the Slayer set. For the Slayer auxiliary power, you wanna go for the max HP, and preferably you want to have MP recovery on there. Just the same for my sensor. You wanna find it with max MP and then MP recovery in combat. This is already such a great role. I'm very happy with it. Of course, we would love to see that MP recovery in combat turning into gold, but I'm already very happy with this piece. Then we're going to the backpack, aka the memory. You wanna find this with defense and again MP recovery modifier on there. These are the lowest rolls that I would have. I would love to see it a little bit higher, but this is the combination that you want to look for. And then for our last one, the processor, I would go for max shield and then something next to that. I found it with double gold roll, max shield and shield recovery modifier, but I'm not really utilizing that on my build. But everything on the processor is just quality of life. I will pop it on the screen right now what you can get on the processor, so you can choose accordingly whatever you want to go for. Maybe you can go for some toxic resistance that will help you, for example, fighting Swamp Walker. It's all your choice. I went for max shield and shield recovery modifier. And those are all my external components. Let's go over, of course, the weapon that we're using. We're using the piercing light. And why are we using the piercing light? Because this weapon has the highest firearm attack. We're not looking at the DPS, we're looking at the firearm attack. The firearm attack of this weapon, the piercing light, is 193,437. This is the damage that you need to look out for. I tried a couple of different snipers. I even tried launchers to see if that firearm attack will go over to our skills. It will, but the piercing light is hands down the best weapon to go for. Of course, you can also go for a different sniper if you like, but remember, you will not hit the same damage numbers that I do while I'm showcasing this build. And then it would be a little bit tougher for a base Hailey build, because again, this is a base Hailey build without any activators, without any catalysts on the gun or on my Descendant. So if you don't have the piercing light, then it might be a little bit harder to one-phase the Colossi. I went for bonus firearm attack versus Colossi, firearm critical hit damage, weak point damage, and firearm attack on there. All is gold rolls, and then we build, of course, into action reaction, rifling reinforcement, and I built into better insight for the critical hit rate and better concentration for the critical hit damage. As you can see, we tested out a few things, so we upped the weapon with our max capacity and with the energy activator, but as you can see, we only use 56 points. Yes, you only have to use this. We are staying under the 60 module capacity, what is normal for the weapon. If you reach to level 40, we can always put 60 total in the module capacity. And that's why we stayed underneath that 60, so this is straight up a base build for our piercing light. Action reaction, rifle and reinforcement, better insight, better concentration. You can also go for a little bit more bullets in the mag if you feel like you need that, because these bullets, the expand a weapon charge and the maximize wave balance, will up your bullets in your fourth. The extra damage or the extra crit chances or even the extra weak point damage doesn't really help you. It will not go over in their fourth. If you feel like it does, because sometimes it feels like it, but that is just straight up RNG coming through and giving you that hit. But if you feel like the weak point, for example, helps, what you could do is remove these two and go for weak point expansion, as this will give you a 140% damage on your second shot. So if your first shot hits a weak point, your second shot will get a 140% weak point damage up. We tested out a bunch of things, and sometimes it felt like weak point expansion helped, but most of the times it didn't. So I just made sure that we kept it on our crit build up. So if it works, if it comes through, then you're critting on that shoulder to take him down. But you can go for whatever setup you think is best. The only thing I wanted to show you that we stayed underneath the 60, so the base weapon, and I chose to go for damage, and then of course for our extra damage with our critical hit rate and our critical hit damage. Then let's jump over to the full overview of the build. This is the overview. Yes, you might be thinking, where the actual F is your HP prime? We don't need it. If you are going solo, if you're taking out those hard Colossi solo, you do not need HP. It will remove the damage for you. So what we chose to go for is long distance maneuvering. This will of course give us 10 extra module capacity, boosting us up from 50 to 60 what we can use. I went for dangerous ambush when landing a skill attack while the enemy is not targeting you, skill power plus 24.9%. On skill attack against immobilized enemies, skill power plus 49.8%, and that's why we're doing it. On skill attack against immobilized enemies means that whenever you take down a Colossi, whenever he kneels and he doesn't do anything, he is immobilized, and you're getting almost 50% extra skill power, and from that skill power they multiply everything. And that's why we can one-phase a lot of hard Colossi. Next to that, I went for Chill Specialist. Chill skill power plus 81.2%. And I will explain why we go for skill power and not skill power multiplier. Then next up, we went for skill concentration, skill critical hit rate damage plus 115.4. Of course, next to that, we went for some skill critical hit rate as well, plus 115.4. And then we chose to go for spear and shield. So let's start with why spear and shield. This will give us a skill power of plus 8.1%. We're not doing it for the defense, but we're doing it for that skill power. That's the same with Chill Specialist. We have Chill Skill Power. Same as for the Dangerous Ambush, it's skill power that we're getting extra. And why are we going for skill power? If we hover over our 2, we already see at the freezing beam direct damage or the freezing beam AoE damage that our skill multiplier is almost 9,000% already. The moment that we add more skill power multiplier to it, for example, let's say that we add 100%, this will go to 9002% skill power multiplier, while it was 8902 before. That doesn't really do that much, that extra 100%. It all goes off your skill power. So the more that you increase your skill power, the more damage you will do, because that multiplier is already enormous, almost hitting that 9000%. If you focus on skill power instead of skill power modifier. And that's why we went for Spear and Shield, because we're gaining an extra skill power of 8.1%. That's why we chose to go for Chill Specialist instead of Focus on Chill, because that will give us a skill power modifier, and this is just straight up skill power. And the Dangerous Ambush, as I already explained, this will give us almost 50% skill power as well whenever that Colossi is on its knees. So how can we use Hailey in the optimal way? What should you do with your skills? You can use almost any skill, but it's all depending on R3, R4, and then R2 in that exact same order. You walk into a boss fight, you will pop your 3 to make sure that you get those 16 stacks, so we have our 100% critical hit rate for our weapon and for our skills. When that hits 16, we're going into our 4, we're aiming on the weak points, we're shooting down the weak point, and the moment he goes down, you might want to fire off one more shot to then cancel our 4 to go in R2, preferably when the Colossi is still down on his knees. He can still get up, you can still down him if he stands up, but preferably you want to do it as fast as possible if the Colossi is still on its knees, because if he stands up too fast, we're going to lose that almost 50% extra skill power that we get throughout Dangerous Ambush. And that's pretty much it. If it's a little bit tankier enemy, as you saw in the intro as well, you can shoot your 4 a little bit more, or between your 4 and your 2, you can use the 1. You can build up some extra cryo on the enemy, so you're making sure that your 2 hits even harder. It's not always needed, but that is something that you can squeeze in between as well. So walking on the battlefield, hitting that 3, getting your stacks, going into your 4, shooting down the enemy, maybe hitting him one more time when he goes down, getting out of your 4, into your 2, and beaming him down. If the enemy is a little bit more tankier, in between switching from your 4 to your 2, just hit your 1. Building up those cryo, and then at the same time you can switch over to your 2. The enemy has a little bit more cryo on him, you will do more damage, and your 2 will take him out. And that's pretty much it. A little bit longer video, but I wanted to explain how Hailey works and why we built this way. And again, this is a base build without an energy activator, without any catalysts on there. Everybody and their mom can make this build, and you just need, of course, that piercing light sniper and then these mods, and you are golden. You can at least shred through the first 4 to 5 hard Colossi bosses solo. Although, I'm gonna be honest with you, Hardbright is gonna be tricky, as he is very, very strong against Chill. Thank you very much for sticking until the end. Like the video if you liked the video or helped you out in any way or form. And of course, if you're new here and or you want to be updated by the first Descendant, see more of these base builds, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And I will see you in the next one. PurePrime out.